Okay, let's start with a wild idea. What if you could teach a machine to understand God? And I don't just mean to quote scripture, but to really navigate the deepest, most complex spiritual writings in history. It sounds like something straight out of science fiction, right? Well, as we're about to see, one researcher set out to do just that, pitting an ancient mystic against a very modern machine.
So in one corner, we have the 13th century mystic, Ibn Arabi. His work is just this vast, deep ocean of esoteric spirituality. He wrote about the divine revealing itself in every single moment. And in the other corner, a large language model. An AI that thrives on logic, on patterns, and is confined to just a handful of documents and governed by a totally ironclad rulebook. The gap between these two, it seems just about absolute.
So this collision of worlds, it brings us to our two main characters, the spiritual master, Ibn Arabi, and a highly, highly controlled artificial intelligence. And right at the heart of this whole project is a central, almost paradoxical question.
Really think about that. Can a system that's designed for predictable logical outputs ever truly grapple with a worldview where reality itself is a constant, unpredictable shining forth of the divine? Now that is the challenge.
And to really grasp the true scale of this challenge, you have to understand the sheer complexity of Ibn Arabi's work. This isn't just a collection of nice proverbs or some straightforward theology. No, it's a complete metaphysical system.
The core concept at the center of it all is tajalli. And this isn't just some poetic idea. For Ibn Arabi, it's the fundamental way reality works. Everything, from a star in the sky to a passing thought in your head, is a form of divine self-disclosure. The universe is this continuous, never-repeating act of God revealing himself.
And that one concept branches out into an entire cosmos of interconnected ideas. Now, don't worry about trying to understand what all these terms mean right now. That's not the point. The point is to just get a feel for the sheer density of the material. This is the kind of poetic, deeply esoteric universe the AI has to navigate without just making stuff up.
So how on earth do you stop an AI from just, hallucinating when it's faced with something called the breath of the merciful? You build it a cage, a very, very strong cage. You give it a strict, unbendable rule book.
And I'm not exaggerating. This quote from the manual says it all. The manual is everything. It completely overrides all the AI's built-in tendencies to get creative, to infer, or to pull from its vast general knowledge. And as it says, flat out, no exceptions. So the whole point of the manual is to force the AI to act not as a creative author, but as a hyper-disciplined research assistant. It's designed to prevent exactly the kinds of mistakes these large language models are famous for, right? Things like inventing sources, misinterpreting nuance, and watering down really complex ideas. And in practice, these rules are incredibly specific. The AI can only read from 36 pre-approved documents. Nothing from the outside web, period. It has to use this precise academic transliteration for Arabic terms, distinguishing between letters that might look similar to us but carry huge differences in meaning. And every single claim must follow a preset order and be traceable back to a source inside that corpus. So we have the mystic's ocean and the AI's cage. How does the AI actually build a piece of analysis within these tight constraints? Well, it uses a very carefully designed methodology.
The process is called the source layering method. First, the AI must start with a direct statement from the primary source, from Ibn Arabi himself. Second, it elaborates on that idea using a classical commentator, like Al-Qaisari, who kind of helps unpack these dense concepts. And finally, it has to ground the entire point in scripture, using a very specific mystical interpretation of the Quran.
Here's a perfect example of how this method actually works. To explain the concept of the perfect human, the AI first pulls Ibn Arabi's statement that this figure is a microcosm of all reality. Then it adds Qaisari's commentary, which clarifies this by calling the perfect human a comprehensive book of existence. And finally, it anchors the whole thing with scriptural verses. Now the key here is the AI isn't thinking this. It's assembling it, piece by verified piece, exactly according to the rules. So this highly structured method actually works. It allows the AI to generate complex, source-grounded analysis of mystical texts. But what does an experiment like this really mean for the future of knowledge itself?
See, this isn't a story about an AI replacing a human scholar. It's a story about a new kind of partnership. The human acts as the architect, designing the rigorous intellectual framework, that cage we talked about.
The AI then acts as the tireless builder, using its massive processing power to assemble the arguments within that framework perfectly and without making a single mistake.
And that leaves us with this fascinating, kind of mind-bending question for the future. If a human designs the method and a machine executes the research and the writing with perfect fidelity, who's the true author? Who is the scholar? It really redefines our whole notion of intellectual work, leaving us to wonder, where does the human mind end and where does the machine's contribution begin?